so.
Thank you.
I'm going to call the meeting to order, and the time is 6:31, so I'm off. No, I think we're mic'd up in front, right? We're good to go.
Yeah.
So before, I'm actually going to hand this over to Brett for just a few minutes, but I did not want to forget to recognize the exits. In case of an emergency, there's an exit there, in the back, and across here. So, but I am going to hand it over to Brett right now.
You know, as a district, thank you very much, Erica. As a district, we're stricken with grief today. This morning, we learned of the passing of one of our first graders at Dudley, Madison Carlthonis. She was a first grader, had lots of love, had lots of support, has an amazing family, has an amazing Dudley family, has an amazing family of her own. She passed this morning, and I would like to take a moment of brief reflection so we can have our thoughts centered and in remembrance and in thought and reflection of Madison. Madison represents so much to us, to her family. She represents love. She represents how we as a family, as a Fairport family, come together to lean on each other in times of need, and I'm sure we'll be there for her family. And I know that everyone here is also thinking of Madison and her family as we move forward. So thank you for participating in that, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share those thoughts.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so I am going to move on, but I need a motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
So moved.
Brian? Second. Marty? All in favor? Which then brings us to public comments. So just as a reminder, people do need to sign up ahead of time, and we only had one person sign up today, so again, just a reminder that we want to make sure that everyone is respectful and kind and not making comments specific to certain people. So with that, I'm going to have Doug Willard come up from the audience, and he is a district employee.
So as a reminder, you know, the mics that we have in front of us, we'll do our best to amplify and project our voice because we are recording this while we wait for 512 to put on its finishing touches so we can get back in there. So this will be posted to YouTube as soon as we get it uploaded and making sure that it's ready to go. So we'll talk with our big people voices.
Yes.
All right, good evening. My name is Doug Willard. I live at 7 Chadwell Circle. I'm a parent of a 17-year-old and a 12-year-old in the district, and I'm a phys ed teacher at Dudley Elementary School. Thanks for the opportunity to talk with you this evening. I was hoping to address the current state and future plans for the all-weather track at FHS. I and other parents of Fairport students have noticed that much-needed upgrades to the FHS track are the only items that were removed so far from the updated merger option related to the 2022 referendum. I'm hopeful that another unrelated plan may be forthcoming to benefit Fairport student athletes and community. The current track sits in the land that time forgot at the back corner of FHS property. It's bordered by a state-of-the-art baseball and softball complex, a turf field, and a proud stadium field for lacrosse, field hockey, and football. The stadium field is already on its second refresh or replacement of the turf surface, I believe. The student athletes of our community deserve those common amenities, and so too do the running and jumping athletes at Fairport. The Fairport track, while all weather, is only 6 lanes. The only other 6-lane tracks in Monroe County are RIT, Nazareth, and SUNY Brockport, and those tracks are indoors, not outdoors. In fact, Mighty Fairport, among New York State elites actually in some running categories, is the only high school with a 6-lane track in Monroe County. Fairport is also the only medium to large school that does not have a steeplechase water obstacle. And Fairport happens to have athletes that excel at the steeplechase, but have nowhere to practice that. To understand the importance of track and field and cross-country as well, cross-country running, I feel you first have to understand the people that may be drawn to it. A track and field team is a team of misfit toys, and that is not an insult but a way of describing all the unique pieces of a team. A track and field team is one that features athletes from all walks of life and uniquely different skill sets. The sport itself is a unique jumble of running, jumping, long and high, and handing off. Often young track and field athletes are those that tried and played a myriad of other youth sports. Some excelled, some enjoyed, and others just bided their time. And some thought that perhaps they were not to be athletes. But then they found running and track. For most, the early teen years or middle school are the first opportunity to just sprint or endure or high jump or long jump or to hurdle. And those experiences aren't available to any of our youth that are in the elementary age group. These unique pieces of the puzzle find their legs and thus find themselves and become a perfect fit in a sport perfectly suited to them. They flourish and they find peer groups and learn determination and discipline and the benefit of good hard work. These are all admirable qualities, of course, that our school district hopes to foster in our youth and our community, future Ready Raiders. Modern track would allow our track and field team to host invitationals. Track and field to be able to showcase the incredible talent of our community.
10 seconds.
The current track is, 10 seconds left. It's a community showpiece, if you will. A modern track can become a community hub for health and wellness. In many communities, modern accessible tracks get yearly use by youth all the way to senior citizens. A sense of generational connectedness and respect grows. This should be a priority project for Fairport. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the communications portion of tonight, and the first on the list is actually the president's report. So I'm not sure if you were on last month, but we did have the switch. We had planned on me taking over from Peter after actually a year and a half, almost 2 years of me kind of learning the ropes. So I'm excited that tonight is my first time officially overseeing the meeting. And unfortunately, I couldn't be here last week for the workshop, but I am back today. So for anybody that doesn't know me, I'm not going to talk a whole lot about myself, but I have been on the board. This will be going into my 3rd year. And I've been active in the community beforehand, so you might recognize me from sports. Am I not loud?
Do you want to do a fit? Why don't we go to the microphone when we're doing these so we can best project our voices? Sorry,
I
yeah.
thought I was being loud.
Yeah, you're.
I didn't really want to talk all, but. Now you're all going to have the back of me. Is that better? Okay. So I did just want to introduce myself a little bit. I do have 3 kids in the district, which you've probably heard me talk about a million times. They're all very different and have gone through a variety of programs. So I'm excited that I can be here in the president role as well. And just my background, I've actually worked for a national organization called ADSI that does policy, advocacy, and training at a national level to make sure people with disabilities have the opportunity to work just like everybody else. So that's my background. But I did want to highlight, and especially because Sarah is not here tonight, our student advisor, some of the things that have happened since our last meeting. So one of the top things is kindergarten registration has opened, and we are doing kindergarten screening this year. I know that was a big comment on the thought exchange. Additionally, there were 3 high school students that were recognized in an art show at RIT called Start Here 2023. So you probably have seen that on social media, but very exciting. Another thing I just wanted to mention was that we recognized School Counseling Week. So just really appreciation for all of our counselors that are working across our buildings with our students. And let's see, I will touch on sports a little bit. Sectionals for winter sports started actually earlier with wrestling, and I know there was alpine and Nordic skiing yesterday and today, but we will continue on with sectionals in the upcoming weeks. So hopefully it will continue a little longer, but then our spring sports will start. One other thing I wanted to mention was if you did not tune in to our board workshop last week, which seems like a long time ago, we did talk about the different options for merging the high school and Minerva DeLand, and we are going to talk more about that later tonight. So I did want to bring that up, and I'm going to say one more thing and then I'm going to stop. I did just want to say on Friday night here, just it was really heartwarming to see that there were so many activities going on that were so different. We had a basketball game, a girls' varsity basketball game. We had spontaneous night for Odyssey of the Mind. And we also had a coffee music event where we had students and staff performing. So the fact that it was all going on at the same time for kids in grades K through 12 was pretty impressive, and it really made me realize that this is a home and should be for all of our students. So I'm going to pass it off to the rest of our board if there's any comments on things that I may have missed. Look at it go.
I think that silence is a cue for me. I trust you can hear me all the way back there. Sonia, can you thumbs up? There you go. That makes me happy that I still got that for a little bit, whatever's left here. Erica, I'm going to dovetail off what you just shared. And I have the ability to walk throughout our halls before school, during school, after school, and we are one fortunate, one blessed school community. There's so many exciting things happening in our schools. Our schools are continually being used, and I'm always impressed because it could be a Saturday morning and you will see a robotics club at Martha Brown from 9 a.m. until 4 o'clock. You will see all of our gyms being used, our swimming pools being used. Really proud to be a part of it. During the day, we've invested in choir, providing more access to our choirs during the day for our elementary schools. We have record numbers of students participating in these activities, as witnessed by the wonderful performances that we're seeing, especially these past couple weeks. Our mental health team, again, celebrating our mental health staff. We appreciate all that they do. We know that they are the foundation of many things that we do here, because if your heart and mind aren't right, the academics are going to be challenging to follow. But here we have pictures of our high school team during midterm week connecting our students to wellness. Another picture, standing room only, I would like to say. It's great to see friends, family members, grandparents out and about to celebrate all the things that we do here. We have our staff advisory committee working with Justin Murphy, talking to them about Rochester history and its impact on Rochester, and central themes that we continually are reminded of throughout the nation, not only just Monroe County. We also are talking about Black History Month this month. Many of our schools, it's really cool how our students are connecting to Black history and celebrating all the great accomplishments of African Americans throughout the United States and throughout time in history. You go to each of our schools, you will see tributes, not only this month, but throughout the year. But this is Black History Month, and we're proud to be celebrating it. And of course, interscholastic athletics, our winter sports, are going to be wrapping up soon. We wish everybody the very best as they move into sectionals. Really proud to be a part of it as we go into budget season. These are intentional investments, and I'm proud that the board sees the importance of these opportunities. Although they be extracurricular, they are integral to the development of our students, and that we'll be talking about it throughout budget season. And again, the board has set the budget goals. We set these in November. Really proud of the fact that the board talks about the budget in August when no one's thinking about the budget, so we can have firm budget goals as we enter budget season, as we'll be talking tonight about the non-instructional budget. But again, it's the core of, it's our story. This Board of Education is proud of creating a budget that is student-centered, that meets the needs of our students with our facilities, and the concept of sustainability throughout our organization. We'll be talking about these stories and how we're trying to build these stories throughout the budget season. But also, the community has says we want to be fiscally responsible, and the board is being fiscally responsive, making sure that we're maintaining our strong financial position, preserving our district's strong bond rating, and managing our reserves to offset future costs, so we can give the dollars that we have in our reserves back to the community. You'll be hearing these themes throughout the budget process, and again, they help guide and build the budget. We gave a thought exchange. Thought exchanges are important, and they're good because it gives us a flavor of what our school members are thinking and feeling. We had about 300 individuals participate in our thought exchange. Again, it's not the whole community, that's for sure, but you get a sense of a representation, and over time, if you extrapolate those numbers out, the themes remain constant. So these are consistent with what we have heard too. Academic high expectations. Fairport families, Fairport staff, community has high expectations academically. The behavior, we want to make sure that we're meeting the social emotional needs of our students, making sure that we have plans in place to meet the ever-changing needs of our students, whether it's regulating themselves in the classroom or interacting with social media, mental health. These are priorities of our community. The top thoughts from the thought exchange. Again, that was number one, cell phone use. It's on everyone's mind. Making academics a priority. There were comments about district rankings. A call out for support for the mental health and social emotional needs of our students, and making sure that teachers have and staff have resources at their disposal to meet the wide range of needs that we have seen. We have come out of the pandemic, or we are coming out of the pandemic, but our kids are still transitioning. We're finding many students we're still having challenges of getting them back into rhythm and pace like we were accustomed to before, and continuing to have intentional actions. I think that's what the community is saying to support these students. And again, more academics. These are key thoughts. Academic excellence. Good to hear that, right? I'm a school teacher. I want to hear a focus on academics. I want to hear that, make sure that we're prioritizing academics as well as the social emotional needs of our students as we move along. Up here, you'll see this throughout presentations as we go through the budget process. Tonight, we're reviewing the non-instructional budget presentation. We've already spent some time at workshops on this very topic, but as we go into March, we'll be processing the instructional budget, and then roll through April. The full budget will be put together, and it will be based upon this process. This is not a one and done. The board is constantly seeking feedback. We're constantly trying to give the board good information, so the budget we bring forward is a budget that is aligned with the community's expectations and the board priorities. There'll be a public hearing on May 2nd, and a budget vote and board elections on May 16th. And we'll be talking more about that later on, but just kicking off the budget season, if you will. I am really excited about universal pre-K. The board charged us with studying universal pre-K and adding sections of universal pre-K, and I'm going to transition to Dr. Tanya Wilson-Thavenason at this point to talk a little bit more.
Hi everyone, can you hear me too? All right, great. I'm so excited about our request for proposals for UPK, Universal Pre-Kindergarten, UPK for short. We put out a request for proposals in December, and the short term for that is RFPs, so if you ever hear someone saying that. Basically, we went out to the entire Fairport community and beyond. We posted on all our social media, on our website, and mailed out to everyone in our borders and asked for proposals. We received proposals after an information session that we held on January 1st. The RFPs were due on February 1st, and we had 3 submissions. So potentially, we have an additional 54 seats of pre-kindergarten for next year. So that's what we'll be examining. We have a committee that's going to convene, and we will then make recommendations to the board for that March 21st board meeting. If you could go forward.
Thank you.
Superintendent Provenzano. And there we go. We have a very robust rubric that we're going to use as we're looking at our RFPs. And that's aligned to New York State as well as the Board of Education's expectations for our schools. We're going to look at everything from the curriculum that's used to the class sizes and qualifications, plans for professional development and parental involvement, all the way up to fiscal transparencies and making sure the sites are ready for students. One more. So we have 3 RFPs received. Right now we have 54 seats of universal pre-K in our district. We have the potential of 90 total for next year, so that's an increase. And we are looking at potentially, so New York State does offset the cost of universal pre-K, but not all the way. And so that's a consideration we need to take to the board. So if we were to accept all three proposals, the potential cost to Fairport would be about $170,000 for next year. So just something to keep in mind, but we'll do a very thorough job of reviewing those and giving the board recommendations.
I'm really excited about developing UPK, but I'm more excited at this time to talk about Brotherhood Sisterhood Week because I think it embodies everything that the board stands for. Compassion, awareness, respect, and embracing the differences of all members in our school community. We're excited about making Brotherhood Sisterhood Week more inclusive, more district-wide. Bob Clark and his team have done an amazing job holding the fort down, celebrating it, but we said that all of our students say that this is a hallmark experience. And from that, we are taking it from a building base here at FHS and making it a district base. Bob and his team have been amazing, continuing to be a part of our process. Again, because a lot of it does center around what happens here at the high school, but we're excited about all the wonderful traditions and memorable experience that Brotherhood Sisterhood Week brings. And that will be next month. It is right here around the corner. Next time I'm giving a report, we'll be talking about Brotherhood Sisterhood Week. So I'm signing off for now. I'm proud to be a part of it all. I'm looking forward to talking about budget and all the wonderful things we have happening on this agenda. Thank you.
Can I just ask a clarifying question?
Sure, only if you speak up.
I'm trying to talk loud. So this is for the entire district,
That's right.
which is super exciting.
Brotherhood Sisterhood?
Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
And it's not different in different schools, so.
Oh, no, we meet the theme days, so we don't
Oh,
have
I'm
to figure
talking
out
about
for
the
each
theme
kid.
days.
The theme days are consistent, and I think, again, that's a credit to our teachers all
Yeah.
saying that as well. Like, we had a full committee of elementary teachers providing great input, hanging with the high school and middle school friends, and everybody collaborating. You see that emblem that was designed by a student here at Fairport High School.
Molly Geisler?
Thank you, Molly Geisler. Did a great job. That was voted upon and unanimously was picked as our theme emblem for this school year. Those shirts are posted. Please make sure if you're interested in purchasing one, by all means. If there's financial need, let us know. Let your main office know. We'll be able to support everybody to get a shirt. We want everybody to have a shirt. That's our priority.
I love Thursday. I want to go visit the schools.
I'm going to dress as a board member on Thursday. There you go. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on to the treasurer and investment update, but I did want to mention, if you are watching from home, this information is actually below in the consent calendar. So if you look there, the treasurer's report is F. So all the numbers and exciting stuff that Matt will talk about is also there.
We snuck it in. So exciting, we put it in two
You
places.
put it in two places.
Great, thank you and good evening. Tonight we have the Treasurer Investment Update for the month of December 2022. In the general fund, we had a beginning cash balance of approximately $104.8 million. Receipts of the month for the month of $3.3 million. Disbursements of $13 million for an ending cash balance of $95.1 million. Of the $95.1, we have about $94.5 invested in a mix of money market CDs, insured cash sweep, and T-bills. It's about 99% of the funds. Revenues and expenses trending very similar to prior year. Overall, about $94.6 million in revenue. That's accounted for mostly by state aid and property tax, and expenses of $53.4 million. And that's the report for the month of December.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, so we're moving on to the consent calendar, and I need,
Donations first.
what?
Donations first.
Donations.
Yep.
Really? You're good.
You're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Joyce, second. Marty. And is there any discussion around it?
Do discussion consent.
Oh, we can't, never mind. That'll see, I told you. All in favor?
It takes a little getting used to that.
He's been waiting to say that.
I know. Okay, Brian, now we're gonna move on to the donation. And on this one, I need a motion to approve the donation.
So moved.
Peter, Joyce, and
Great.
now.
Grateful to our PTAs for these donations. Our PTAs rule.
Again, if you click on them, you can see more information about what they are from home. But yeah, there's been a lot of great things from our PTAs donated. All in favor? 7-0. Which brings us to personnel actions. So I need a motion to approve the following instructional staff actions as recommended by the superintendent. So,
Before you approve, may I say something?
yeah.
We have some amazing educators here. Maureen Agulia, Betsy Cannon Bailey, Tom Bailey, Mary Chapa, Kelly Fisher, Barb Florence, Amy Hazard, Eileen Hofford, Michael Lazary, Terry Metcalf, Renee Ortiz, and Eric Zimmerman are the names that we have so far. Our hearts are full of gratitude, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention Ellen Reed, who's back there, who continually shows up. We really appreciate her always being here. We're going to miss seeing you here, but your name is also on this list, and again, my heart and my gratitude goes out to all of you, so thank you. And I thank you for giving me an opportunity to mention that.
No, absolutely. And those were retirements that Brett
Yes.
was mentioning. So if you scroll down, you can see the list. And yeah, I think all of us, when we saw the list, had memories and thoughts just of, oh no, they're leaving, and just, you know, what wonderful people and additions they've been.
Well, you know, we talk about all the great things that we do in our schools, and I always say behind every amazing activity or an event is a caring Fairport educator, and we appreciate all that they give. So thank you. Thank you.
Did we get a motion? Yes? No, I didn't think so. So can I get a motion? Joyce and Brian? Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. 7-0. Okay, we're gonna move to the non-instructional and civil service, so I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Oops, Marty, Jan,
Mm-hmm.
any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. 7-0. Which brings us to athletics. There is a large list, mainly because we have our spring sports coming up, so excited for that. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mary Caitlin and Joyce. Any discussion?
Thankful for all of them.
Yeah.
To give their time to our kids.
I would agree. Okay, all in favor? Aye. 7-0. The next one is memorandum of agreement with the FEA. So a motion to approve the attached memorandums between the Fairport Educators Association and the Fairport Central School District. So moved. Marty, Peter, any discussion? It's mainly for FACS classes, and I can say that my son had fun with the person that was in there, so. All in favor? 7-0. And then last here we have a motion that the Board of Education approves a written agreement between the Fairport Central School District and an employee of the district executed by the Superintendent of Schools on February 8th.
So moved.
Marty and Peter. Discussion. Okay, all in favor? 7-0. And now we are to the fun part, presentations. So first up, we have the 2019 Capital Improvement Project group.
Is the clicker up there by chance?
That's what I was looking for too.
Mark, you know how to use a clicker?
Get an idea. Good evening, how everyone's doing tonight? I'm here to give the update from January 23 for the Phase 1 2019 Capital Improvement Project. We have our overall referendum authorization of $56,750,000. This is how it's broken up to the various categories. Our current construction contingency right now, projects approximately 77%, with our contingency budget spent at 68%, so it's tracking as appropriately going through the project. Currently still are right now tracking just over $1 million worth of remaining construction contingency. We also have allowances built into the contracts of just over $190,000 available still to spend. So just looking at the Phase 1A scope of work update, we're currently working through that bottom line where we'll be doing some of that summer work upcoming in the summer in the gymnasium, along with continuing working in the science classrooms up on the second floor. Here's just a diagram of all the terrazzo work that'll be happening throughout the corridor spaces, along with the tile work that's ongoing. As you can see that walking through the buildings. We have existing in the red, and in the blue is where we have proposed tile and hallway work that's ongoing right now. The Phase 1B would have been the middle school and elementary buildings. We're about halfway down the page with work that's still ongoing within those facilities, with Minerva DeLand work that's happening still, JP, Dudley, and Northside to wrap out the projects on 1B, with a lot of that work still upcoming this spring and going into the summer of '23. Smart School project, we have completed the first phase of this, and the second phase will start this summer, or this spring, and going into the summer and fall. The scope of work includes the conversion of new access control systems, building lockdown features, interior wireless locks, and security cameras. And then we believe we have some photos. I'll go with the update. Just on Phase 1, the first floor, kitchen, cafeteria, school courtyards, boiler room, and then smart schools, all that work is continuing along with the wall tile. Along with the second floor classrooms that are continuing through there, and a lot of the finishes, as you can see walking through the high school, and then some of those science classrooms upstairs are still ongoing. And then 1B, we're continuing the renovations of the nurses area at Northside, over at Minerva, continuing the installation of the new exterior windows throughout the building, and then over at Dudley, starting reconstruction of the nurses' office there to match over with the Northside version of it. And have some photos here throughout the areas, the second floor classrooms. We have drywall ongoing right now with painting. Prep room in the science rooms to match similar ones that have already been completed. Again, we have all new ceiling grid and the lights that are going in throughout these spaces right now. So really working on the finishes throughout the second floor classrooms. We have the 512, the boardroom, with the new ceiling spaces going in and lighting that's ongoing. North side, the nurse's office demolition has been ongoing now, with framing that's been put into this space throughout the renovations. The boiler is being replaced over at Minerva DeLand to upgrade the HVAC systems, along with the windows continuing to be replaced throughout the building. A look from the inside of the building. So production is going very well throughout all the facilities right now on schedule and on budget, so it's going very well. Any questions?
I have a statement. You know, it's great seeing the planning and organization, Aaron, our internal team, Matt Stevens, Bob Clark, Tom Devitt, Fritz Killian, meeting with your team and the Bell Associates, and it's cool. We're close, right? I know we're dotting some I's and crossing some T's, but we're in the home stretch.
Going into the summer, yes. It'll be a lot of good work that still happens to wrap this building up. But yeah, being 3/4 way through the project, we're in a great place.
Science classrooms are right on the mark.
Yeah, they're,
if you will.
look very nice.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, which moves us on to the 2023-24, feels weird saying that, non-instructional budget, so.
I'm going to get close to my friend here, Matt Stevens, and I'm going to go by the
Oh.
podium, just because. Excuse my back already. Good evening, everybody. Here it is. Again, Brett Provenzano here to talk about the non-instructional budget. The non-instructional budget is the backbone of our budget. It speaks to the networks, it speaks to the buildings and the grounds and the computers, the safety and security that is on everyone's mind these days. It speaks about the human resources and the business office and the superintendent's office, things that are needed to move us along so we can provide the very best programming. There's many factors influencing this budget, and I just want to reiterate that. There's going to be continual themes. We all know we're living in an era of inflation. Over the past year, from December 21 to 22, you're going to see an average of 6.5% increase in our inflation rate. That impacts the cost of doing business, right? Goods and services will naturally increase when you're going to have an inflation rate of 6.5%. Energy costs. It takes energy to heat and cool these buildings. That's been a 7.3% increase. Again, we will see that reflected throughout the budget. Food services, 10.4% over the past year, especially in areas of high amounts of products and goods and services like in transportation. You're going to see the cost and parts of services in our trans department, which you will see really soon how that's impacting this non-instructional budget. But not only that, minimum wage has been had an impact on our schools. For the past 6 years leading up to the 21-22 budget, we've been managing minimum wage with an annual impact on the budget of approximately $140,000 annually, or $2 million over time. Right? So minimum wage, and again, this board, you guys are fierce advocates for all of our employees here. And you want to make sure that we even do better than minimum wage. So we've had wage adjustments so we could stay competitive, so we can recruit the very best for our kids. And those wage adjustments, when you see line items, I'm not going to keep going into this. I'm not going to keep saying it for the sake of you. But I just want you to know that that's a part of this process. So when you see a line item that's beyond 5-6%, that's because we're dealing with these factors that I just mentioned. In this presentation tonight, we're going to review our goals really quickly. Mr. Stevens is going to talk about the governor's proposal because that's how we pay for it. All the wonderful things that we do, a portion of how we pay for what we do here. State aid to Fairport. Mr. Stevens is going to give a nice presentation on what we have received historically and the trends with our budget and tax levy increases. And then we're going to review components of the budget, and we have a special feature for you,
Because I want,
Erica.
yeah,
Right.
I know.
You will see how a picture is worth 1,000
I need
words.
the pictures.
Thanks to Lindsay Redding and her team of one. And then, of course, the board will interact and ask questions. But I said this earlier. I'm not going to go into this too much further, but the budget tells a story, and it's this story. And I was fortunate enough to be principal in Fairport for approximately 10 years, district office. And getting these budget goals, it wasn't always at the forefront. Now it is, and this board makes it at the forefront. And we talk about budget throughout the entire year. We set budget priorities beginning in August, September, October, so when it comes November, the board has been able to approve these for the past several years. Really proud of that. And this is our story. This is what we want our dollars to replicate in our budget. Mr. Stevens is going to talk about aid to education.
Well, Mr. Stevens is coming up. I did just want to mention that people can access this PowerPoint where all the information is either on Board Docs, which you can get to from our website, and if they reach out as well.
Yep, you're 100% right. It will be accessible. We're happy to share it, but we're also going to be able to transpose in the recording some of these slides too. So it's going to be many opportunities to get the good word out so we could share our story so people can clearly see what we're trying to accomplish and how we're trying to be the very best for our kids and community.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Provenzano. So the next piece we'll talk about here is the governor's proposal for schools. What's that look like for our school aid for 2023-24? So overall, a $3.1 billion proposed increase, 10%, one of the largest increase we've seen in several years here, dating back to when the foundation aid formula first went into place about 17 years ago as a whole. And of the increase of that $3.1 billion, 2.7 is related to a foundation aid increase. The proposed budget has that plan for that 3-year phase-in that we talked about in years past to fully phase in the formula for foundation aid. So how that plays out for Fairport as a whole, you can see about $4.1 million increase in foundation aid for the district. That is, again, largest increase we've seen in several years as a whole. A note to that, kind of an asterisk, that doesn't include the high impact tutoring amount. So about $448,000 of the proposed foundation increase is related to high impact tutoring. That is to be treated as a separate supplemental funding basis. So there are some restrictions surrounding how it has to get reported, in terms of how the district has to establish and identify needs that tutoring money would then support. So it's going to be based on what we're able to, in essence, what we end up spending and how we can improve those funds. Yep.
It's anticipated that will be a one-time supplemental funding?
Yes, at this point, the way it stands in the current budget is it's the 23-24 one-time budget. So that's a key also as we look at future years in terms of depending on that funding source as a whole. As we have those expenses, we can utilize the funding in 23-24 currently as the proposal stands. So good question. Another piece, as we kind of talked about earlier, the UPK program. So there's a proposed increase in the funding for expanding universal pre-K, as well as looking at the expense-based aids. So expense-based aids circle around transportation, BOCES, building aid, instructional material aid like textbooks, software, hardware, and library materials. The proposal is to fully fund those aids according to the formula. So there's aid percentages that we receive back on the expenses in the current year that's funded in the following year. And those are, again, proposed to remain funded based on the formula. For us, it nets out at about $1 million increase. And the way that flows through is there's 3 large pieces here as a whole. We talked a little bit about the 2019 capital improvement project, how that's coming to a close. So right now, currently projecting an increase in building aid of $2.1 million. Very important to note that on the expense side of the budget, as we go through this presentation, you'll note that there is an increase in the debt service. Ultimately, as we go through that process, we'll be balancing the debt service payment with the building aid to try to match up as a whole based on the impact that we have projected back when the project was proposed. So those numbers could shift a little bit in terms of the debt service payment and the revenue. It also depends on the timing of which we're able to file our final cost reporting. That's when the work is completed. If we're able to do that by December, we can get a full year aid, but if it's not until June, it'd be a half year aid. So that $2.1 million may adjust a little bit as we move through the process. We'll be meeting as teams to talk about the projected completion time and cost reporting for the projects. BOCES aid, there's a slight decrease in the BOCES aid, about $1 million. That's related specifically to the BOCES capital improvement project that we had a payment plan for 3 years. Monroe 1 BOCES schools had a 3-year payment plan and period. About $1.3 million dropping off the expense side of the budget. So that $1 million is related to the reduction in the expense as well. We made our last payment in 2022-23. Therefore, the revenue falls off in 23-24 for us.
On UPK, from the earlier presentation by Dr. T, right, you mentioned $169,000. Is that assuming this is covering the rest, or is that?
That's right.
Yeah, so we'll tap into what we can for the 90 positions of the 125 million increase, and the rest is still falling on local share.
The increase, just to kind of clarify and help with that, the increase actually is reflected based on a per pupil basis. So the district will receive the same number that we've seen in the past, $5,400 per pupil. So that difference that Dr. Tevedation was mentioning earlier was related to the
40 student
difference in the cost. So $170,000 is actually would have to be funded through a local funding source within the district. So
So it does take it into account that we're tapping in as much as we can.
Yes, we are.
And then the difference.
Yep, we'll be tapping in. So it's about, if you think about $97,200 per class, and then the overage would be funded through the general fund.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, overall, just to kind of, give an idea of what that meant for us, we saw about 134 new proposed slots for 2023-24. Really trying to capitalize as much as we can on the request for proposal that we've received back. Here's just a brief history of our foundation aid and overall state aid. So here you can see in 23-24, about $31.6 million currently budgeted for foundation aid. And our draft overall state aid budget, which is a combination of the expense-based aids, foundation aid, and all the other pieces we receive, of $52 million. And again, there's the kind of the makeup at the bottom in terms of where that increase comes from. 4.1 million in foundation aid, 2.1 in building aid, netted out by the decrease in OC's aid.
Matt, on the foundation aid phase-in, so this is the last year of the full phase-in, right? So does that mean like we're not going to see that probably that 31 mil like around there, or is there still going to be increases next year? That depend on the formula?
So it'll depend on the formula and the funding. So we wouldn't anticipate at this point in time receiving such a large increase that it'll be funded based on the formula.
So that's-
I
apologize.
was going to say there are some inflationary factors that may go into play in the formula, which we did see with this year. Initially, the full phase-in, if we looked at 2023, at the time, was in the $2 million range. Because of the other factors in the formula that came into play, we saw a larger increase.
And that's going to be a point of advocacy for the legislative group, and that's where we're trying to see, like, that formula needs to continue to be adjusted, and hopefully the money continues to flow so we can move along with our program.
March 8th.
Yep, good question. This here is just graphing what the foundation aid increase looks like. So you can see from 17-18 through 2021, those increases were minor. We saw increases of a couple $100,000 a year. In some cases, not much at all. You can see from 20 to 21 in the $200 range. So essentially stayed close to flat. And then from 22 through 24, those are the 3 years of the phase-in. Shifting gears a little bit, looking at our budget, tax levy, and tax rate. There's some historical data here. You can see 2019 through 23, change in budget being the top line, and the change in the tax levy. So that's the amount of funds needed to raise to support the budget annually. Each year, important to note, we've stayed at the tax cap, so we've stayed within that tax levy limit, tax cap as a whole. And then the tax rate, you can see there, each year it's been underneath the tax levy increase. And the reason is because as we see the tax base grow, that has an inverse relationship to the tax rate. So back in, it's still on the graph, will fall off next year, but back in 18-19, there was a large reassessment in the town of Perrington. I know as we talk about that, the feeling is always that the taxes themselves will rise tremendously, but the school district is still going to only raise the tax levy that we propose, which ultimately will reduce the tax rate increase because assessments increased. So important to know, as you see that blue line on the bottom, falls below the green line, which is the levy percent change over the years.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Appreciate it. I think that historical context and understanding and where the dollars are coming from is critically important as the foundation of our budget and how we continue to move along the process. We often talk about the non-instructional budget, and we really want people to understand it's the backbone of many of our services that we are able to do internally, pretty much the cost of doing business to support all of our students and staff, close to 6,000 students that we're completely responsible for as a district. The instructional budget is critically important. We're going to play a video. Erica's going to click that.
Yeah, try it.
Yeah, it might just escape out of the presentation.
Oh,
Maybe.
okay.
There we go. Sorry about that. I
just
totally
gave it-
messed you up. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Volume up. Those are Matt's fingers. It's a meme now.
Fairport Central School District is a big place, and everybody's like, yeah, absolutely. It's one of the bigger schools in Monroe County. What they don't really think about is just really what that means. The total campus is just over 300 acres, 303 and change to be exact. However, what that kind of translates to, that's cared for predominantly by 5 groundskeepers, which translates to 60 acres per person, which turns into, if you break it down even further, that's 120 residential properties that each person is responsible for. And 8 academic buildings and 1.2 million square feet of building. That square footage breaks down to over 31,000 square feet of building that needs to be cleaned per staff member every single night. And we'll break it down a little further. What's that mean to you or me? That's 15 homes on average, if it's a 2,000 square foot home, that every person in my staff cleans every single day. So yeah, sustainability, it's inherent in our culture. It has to be. If it's not efficient, we are not sustainable as a department, period, right? If we don't have the proper equipment to do the job quickly and efficiently without being wasteful, we do not have the resources to be wasteful. Whether that's the time and the energy spent by staff members, or whether it's the resources that we put at fuel, electricity. If we're wasting fuel and electricity and time, that cuts into the budget, which is pretty lean, all things considered. So it always looking to be efficient in time and energy.
Absolutely. So student devices, there's one for every student. So the enrollment is like 5,500. So there's 5,500 devices between iPads and Chromebooks. What we've seen is them being in backpacks and coming home every day, the amount of hardware repairs has increased because prior to COVID, we had everything in the classrooms. So they'd stay in cabinets, they'd stay charged, they'd pull them out when they needed them, and they put them back. So now that we're seeing a lot more travel and traffic with them, it's definitely a lot more repairs. We have almost 700 teachers or teacher staff that has a laptop as well, so that's almost 700 laptops. We have about 530 classrooms in the district that are full-time instructional, so they also have a computer in them that's attached to the presentation wall or the teaching wall. So that is typically a ViewSonic touchscreen TV. So 530 touchscreen TVs with 530 desktops, with 700 teacher laptops, with 5,500 student Chromebooks. There's quite a bit of devices. And we manage all the purchasing for software and hardware. So really the needs of the district filters through this. So when we advocate yearly in the spring for a tech reserve, those are for big budget items like the district wireless. So last spring we had a vote, the community voted positively. The contents of what they were voting on last year was replacing the wireless in the entire district. So that's about 900 access points at about $1,300 each. And that will set us up for almost 8 years of wireless connectivity. Over the years, we try to get as much life out of our technology as possible. The typical lifetime of a computer or any technology object is usually 5 years. But what we do is anything that lives beyond that we can use elsewhere, we use as spares, or we use in any other capacity possible.
I've been driving, I started driving a school bus in 1995, and it was shocking to me to know everything behind the scenes, because I always thought, yeah, you get on a bus, you get to school. But there is so much behind the scenes that, from routing, from, talking with parents and making sure you're getting students to all the various programs that are going on throughout the day. It's just a huge task to make sure we're getting our over 5,000 students to every program that they need to get to in each day. For the transportation department, the biggest ticket item is going to be the cost of the buses. Then you look at fuel prices, you look at oils, parts, everything down in the mechanics shop have gone up, 20, 25%. So there's a pretty large increase in that. I tell you, it's not hard to say stuff nice about our team. Our drivers are fantastic. They're reliable. They're here. They do the grunt work out there in the lot. They're up early before most everybody else is up and out there starting the buses and getting going. Our attendants and monitors do a fantastic job relating to the kids. We just have a really good group of people here. So we have about 100 buses mixed between large and small buses. So it's important when it comes time to replace that we do get a good number of buses. We typically try to replace about 10 buses a year. You want to keep the technology up. For the sustainability part, new buses are cleaner. The fuels that we're using are cleaner. We're constantly trying to stay ahead of the curve from that standpoint. You know, the additives we use get longer life out of the buses. They get longer distances, better fuel mileage. We do everything we can to make our vehicles and get the people in here. You know, because that's part of it too. Sustainability is keeping our crew here. So we do what we can to keep them happy, so to speak, and just try and plug away day in, day out.
Can we do a comparison for my first?
That's the feedback you give me. It took me 8 years to figure it out, but I do have to say thank you to Lindsay Reddick. And really, if it wasn't for her going out there and taking all the information and creating it in a visual that sort of explains what the non-instructional budget entails. Now that wasn't everything, but it was the big rocks, so to speak, and it was so well done, and I really appreciate it, so thank you very much. And that's what we're going to spend some time talking to you a little bit more about. And I want to, again, just emphasize those factors, and I won't say it again, but it's worth saying that wage adjustments, I think John Kidd said it perfectly, that there's a measure of sustainability there. If we want to be competitive, if we want to recruit and retain, it costs dollars to do that, especially in a competitive environment when schools and school districts and agencies are all competing against each other for the same workers. So what is reflected in these line items are wage adjustments. You'll see advertising increases because it takes dollars to recruit. We've done an amazing job, Doug Luff and his team, working with our PR team, really have shifted gears in trying to recruit a diverse and active workforce. And not only just recruit, hire and sustain as well. As we move through the non-instructional budget, you're going to see increases. Now, our Board of Education, they don't receive any wages. They've never received wages. But what they do is meet. They have opportunities for professional development so they could be the best for our community, so they could establish policy that aligns with their priorities. It costs money to have meetings, it costs money for professional development, so you'll see slight increases there. And again, it's a smaller line item, so any increase you're going to see a greater proportion in the percentage. You know, district meeting, that is a wage adjustment. It takes money and bodies and people who want to contribute. They don't get paid a lot, but we did have to, and we were happily able to adjust their wages so it's competitive, and so we can honor the great work that they do when it comes to the voting that occurs in the district. You'll see a 12% increase in the auditing department, which again, adjusting wages so we could hire somebody at a competitive rate, and making sure that that office, our audits, I think Mr. Forsgren has spoken highly of them. The board spends a lot of time in audit and financing. The auditor does come in frequently. The auditor does report and shares information on how we're doing, so we're doing things by the books in the right way and protects the entire community, actually. Personnel, you see an increase there of 7%, and that's because there are wage adjustments, trying to hire and recruit secretarial staff there, but also there's been a push for advertising. I think you've had how many? 2 recruitment fairs, and you've seen campaigns in different places. Mr. Loff has, throughout the year, given reports on how we're doing with our essential workforce in our recruitment. So we appreciate that. Public information and services, again, more dollars will be allocated for advertising and communicating. You see us trying to communicate in multiple different modalities, and it takes resources to do that. And again, you'll see wage adjustments and increases in that salary line as well. Our general support and operation, that's for Mr. Smith. That was wonderful. I really appreciated the effort you put into that. It speaks directly to all of what Aaron Smith, our director of B&G, was speaking about, the operation and maintenance of our facility. You can see those lines, given the fact that heating and cooling costs have increased. Mr. Stevens and his team have done a remarkable job of trying to make sure that we're really being reflective, looking at multiple years of data, and I know he's watching those carefully as we support the operation and maintenance of our physical plant. And again, think about all the 1.2 million square feet or 125 acres of land, and they do it. They do it very well with the resources they have. And at the prioritizing or at the priorities of sustainability, and I'm really proud that you're mentioning that and talking about how we are sustainable, how we put our maintenance on a cycle, so we're running at highest efficiency moving forward. So we really appreciate the effort there. You'll see a new line there, security of plant. Safety and security is on everyone's mind. It doesn't really take a lot of explaining. However, we've had to adjust dollars from the operation and the maintenance of our plant, and we shifted some dollars to security of plant so we can continue to develop this line item in the budget. It speaks to our security features, from communication systems to camera systems, to our safety, our sentries and guardians that you see in our schools, to Sam Farina, who is our chief and director of safety and security here. Really proud of the work that we're doing in this realm. I'm really proud of how we're trying to make sure that we're doing all we can to secure our grounds, and doing it in a way that's research-based, and using resources and deliberately allocating resources to make sure that we can support what it takes to do that. General support, when you're looking at central data processing and tech services, all hardware, all of the software, it takes partnerships with BOCES, it takes resources to accomplish that. Parent Square, Pick My Kid Up, BOCES 1, BOCES 2 partnerships, it's all wrapped up here. And our technology team, thank you, Mr. Devitt, for sharing. You know, when we go one-to-one, there's a cost to that, right? And we're replacing laptops, we're fixing them, and it created a whole new line of business. But we're happy to do that, and we try to make sure we do make sure that everyone, we do make sure everyone has access to a computer so they can access the programming. Insurance, that's an interesting one. Cybersecurity. There's a cyber insurance line that's increased, right? And you see that in this 7.5% increase in the insurance line. That's a cost of doing business. Like, we can't avoid that. And our insurance carriers pass that on to us. And from all the security that we have, and it's very helpful on many different layers, because it does protect data, it does help us support students when necessary as well. So you put them all together, and you see a general support total of negative 3.56%. Now, it says minus 40% in the special items of the BOCES and administration. That's because we were paying debt on a BOCES when we use BOCES, like we have about 75 to 80 kids go to BOCES every year to access their programming, and we had to fulfill our obligations to that debt, and I think, you know, we do not need to pay that. Last year was our last payment, and that's why you see such a significant decrease, which impacted our overall general support line. Did I capture that? Gosh, probably not as well as you would have, that's for sure. I mean that. So, next line is transportation. Stevens, why don't you take this away and take us home from this point forward to the last slide. Why don't you drive us home for transportation? Thanks.
Thank you. So the next piece, we heard Mr. Kidd talk earlier about transportation, different variables. Here on the screen, you can see many of the different variables that impact the budget for transportation. We transport, you know, not only our to our in-district programs. We have midday shuttles. We have private placements where we transport students to private parochial programs. We work with BOCES for contract transportation as well as contract out outside of that for, you know, our other programs and placements. So all that together with our staffing and the contracting, those are big pieces of our transportation program, as well as buses and parts and fuel, oil, all the different pieces that tie in here. So here are the major components of transportation. So the first piece you can see in the 5510, about a 11.4% increase there, primarily related to buses and wages. So within that line, you can see that. There's been an increased cost for school buses. We see buses go up about $30,000 to $40,000 a bus based on supply and demand alone of the buses. As Mr. Kidd mentioned in the video earlier, we have about a 10-year replacement plan, but here you can see we're proposing to replace 9 buses and trade in 9 buses. Last year we did 8 buses and traded in 8. Trying to keep buses a little bit longer. At the same time, with 100 buses, anytime we trade in less than 10, we're delaying our replacement plan out. You know, extends it a little bit each year. And it doesn't catch up with us until about 8 to 10 years out as we're going through that process. But his team tries to do they do a fantastic job of maintaining the buses, keeping them on the road, handling Department of Transportation inspections, all those different pieces that the department handles. So the bus purchase is about $1.6 million less. We call it a trade-in of $36,000. It's more of a salvage value of $36,000 because we keep the buses for so long. For a net cost of $1.57 million overall. Again, mix between small and large buses. Proposing to replace 6 large buses and 3 of our small buses, the 28 passenger. The other lines as a whole staying pretty flat. Garage building, we have still a fairly new building, so we haven't seen a lot of major repairs needed at the building over time. Those could take place, however, right now, keeping the budget flat overall in that area. And then our contract transportation, the $1 million, keeping that flat as well. That's what we have contracted with Monroe School Transportation. So if you see a Monroe school bus transporting students in the district or to private parochial schools, that's our contract transportation. And then BOCES, also Monroe and BOCES provide some transportation for the school district. So overall, about a 9% increase in transportation, again, primarily related to the wages and cost of buses. Important to note, buses themselves are considered a tax cap exemption, so the local share and cost of that is exempt under the tax cap. It flows similar to capital project work with our debt service, less our state building aid, and all flows in there as an allowable exclusion. Community services simply is more of a, to reflect the pass-through piece of any lifeguards, keeping this flat, establish the budget line, typically offset by facility use fees. And then one of the larger portions of the non-instructional budget surrounds benefits. Now, important to note, these benefits are related to all of our employees. When we get down the road in the budget presentations, we then start breaking it down by the 3 parts, program, administrative, and capital, of which then the benefits are spread across each one of those categories. But here, these would represent everyone from our non-instructional to our instructional administrative employees for the district. So employee retirement system, that's the contribution that the school district has to make on behalf of employees enrolled in the employee retirement system. And We can see there that the average contribution rate is going from 11.6% up to 13.1% of salaries. So we take our salaries, multiply it by the contribution rate to come up with our cost as a whole. The teacher retirement system, you see a slight decrease there. We do see the rate decreasing from 10.29 down to 9.76. That will be reflected in projected salaries times the contribution rate. And then FICA Med, that's 7.65% wages. That again is a calculation on related to salaries. Workers' compensation, based on experience, we see a slight decrease there. We're part of a consortium within Monroe County, so that being part of that consortium helps to manage the overall rate and increase within workers' comp. And then the other pieces you can see there: life insurance, unemployment, disability, health and dental. That's the other large piece. Here we look at where we are throughout the school year, projections. The plan runs from January through December, so we're projecting essentially a second half of the following school year, as we have some data related to January rate changes through the rest of 2023, and then we're projecting for January of 24 through June of 24 for rates. Projecting a 10% increase in the different plans we have, so we have a larger, we're part of a consortium for that as well. The RASH, Rochester Area Schools Health Plan, with Medicare plans as well, so they're projecting 10% increase in premiums in January of 24. And then other benefits, you can see down at the bottom, it's a mix between our flex spending, enrollments, health savings account, health reimbursement account, employee assistance program, tuition reimbursement, and retirement. So we have an obligation to pay for compensated absences upon retirement, or whatever else may be within contracts that we have to pay upon separation from the district. Next piece is taking a look at the debt service and interfund transfers. So as I talked about earlier in our building aid projections for next year, looking at the $2.1 million increase, here you can see it reflected on the expense side of the budget. So the first line are debt service or bands, which are bond anticipation notes. Those are our short-term borrowings until we are in a position to go to long-term debt and start receiving building aid on capital projects. Here you see a large portion budgeted for an interest payment that will come due in July of 23, plus a principal pay down as we, right now, we're looking to go to long-term debt. So again, that may be adjusted slightly dependent upon where we feel will fall for the building aid receipts for next year. We'll do our best to balance that out. Transfer to special aid fund, that's our share of special and summer school has to be reported in the special aid fund, so we have to budget a transfer for that portion that is the local portion and cost. Then transfer to debt service fund, that's our long-term debt that's already in place, that's bonded. You see just a slight change there, that's just based on the interest principal payments of the existing long-term debt. And then transfer to capital is the $100,000 capital outlay project that we're able to receive aid on in the following school year. So that's the other piece that we budget within the debt service and interfund transfers. And then tying it all together, so this is a summary of what Mr. Provenzano talked about earlier with the general support, coupled with the other pieces of the non-instructional budget. Overall change of $5.9 million or 8.43%. Again, bulk of that related to our debt and benefits and transportation. Those are the large pieces you see there in the budget that have the net increases as a whole. Mr. Provenzano, jump through the timeline.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens, and thank you to your staff for putting it all together and organizing it, making sure that we're starting to build a budget with accuracy and timely information for the board to continue to reflect and analyze and compare our priorities to what we're sharing. You'll see today, this is what we're doing, February 14th, a non-instructional budget presentation to the board. Between now and then, we're going to continue to analyze the revenues that we're receiving through state aid and through projected tax cap dollars that we'll be getting, developing our instructional budget, which we'll be talking about a little bit in a discussion with the board. And on March 6th at the workshop, we changed it. That's a new date. Thank you for saying that, because we will be in Albany on the 6th and 7th respectively, and the 6th and 8th, and the 7th will be the new date. We will make sure that that date gets changed. Appreciate it. March 6th. Thank you.
7th, March 7th.
March 6th is the date that's on there. March 7th is the date we'll be broadcasting as the new board workshop, March 7th. That will say 7 really soon.
Because I know
And then
everybody
the
wants to
21st
do
we'll
this.
be here for a presentation sharing all the details of our, what I like to say, our Fairport story, continuing to analyze our revenues to our expenses, and bringing forth a budget for the board to consider for adoption on April 18th at a board meeting. And then on May 2nd, there'll be a public hearing on the budget. And on May 16th, there'll be a budget and Board of Education election that will occur at Johanna Perrin Middle School from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And that's on May 16th. We'll be advertising and making sure that everybody knows the accurate dates and the ones that shifted as of this morning. Thank you for catching that. Any questions? It's riveting, I know.
I do have a question for, I think, Matt, you can kind of address this since you were talking about the transportation piece, and just because it's an issue, and I'm bringing it up, about the electric buses and about the governor's potential mandate on that, and kind of how that fits into the bus buying plan, and kind of the cost of electric buses and how that kind of fits into what we're doing this year with the budget.
So before Matt jumps on and directly answers that, we are engaging in a study on what it would take for us to shift all of our infrastructure, or start to shift our infrastructure to meet that timeline that the governor has put out there. And we will be hearing about that as we move through the year, what that audit's going to require and how we're going to try to allocate dollars and where we're going to get the dollars as we move along. But Matt can refine that even more so to the best of his ability.
Yeah.
It's the question that everyone's asking.
Yeah, so Mr. Provenzano kind of talked and addressed a good portion of it, but some of the pieces, as he mentioned, we're going through a study and partnering on understanding what it would take for our infrastructure, what the supply for electric looks like, what kind of charging stations we would need, how does our landscape and our routes impact what we're actually able to do as a district in terms of electrifying the fleet. So those pieces are taking place as a whole. Some of the cost pieces overall that we see as a district, and each district across the state's anticipating, would be infrastructure upgrades. So what does it take to install those pieces? We anticipate that potentially needing to be capital work. So again, advocating and hoping the state can help support a large piece of that. Right now, electric buses are estimated around $400,000. Some districts have even gotten quotes for $450,000 and seen costs a little bit higher. There are some key pieces. For us, buses are around $150,000 to $160,000 for the large buses. Right now, the aid is amortized over 5 years. So we receive the transportation aid on the purchase of the buses equally over the course of the 5 years. With electric buses, the proposal is to be 12, 13 years, which would see us receiving aid longer, in some cases exceeding planned replacement plans. So some of the costs that we'd see there, battery replacements, just some of the things to try to evaluate over the years as we move forward. The current buses we're purchasing, by the time the current legislation that's in place for replacing buses would still fall within 10 years out for the district. So that's why sticking within our replacement plan of the current fleet that we have, so that we can understand what it truly would take to electrify the fleet and bring our infrastructure up to speed. So those are many factors that we continue to review and look at through the different studies.
So that doesn't mean also we're looking at opportunities to where we could try to capitalize, working with our local leaders to see if we can get funds so we could, test drive and see what it would look like, if you will. It is a point of advocacy, and that's just not, I'm just not saying that just as a soundbite, but I know that members on the board who are on the legislative committee know that, that's what it's going to take. It's going to take state dollars and federal dollars to actually realize this expectation, and trying to have it coincide with our current process and how it generates aid and how we transport effectively, consistently, and most importantly safely. That's our priority. So it's going to take some time. It's out there. Many different school districts like Fairport, we're out there in the forefront, asking questions, and hopefully we'll get answers. Any other questions? Thank you once again to Lindsay, really appreciate that, the effort you put into it. Matt and your team, as always, timely and accurate.
Okay, I'm gonna try to talk loud. So now we are to 7, board discussion and action items. And I know that will probably pull it up so everybody can see it. So at this point, you can see we're gonna be at A, which is merger of Minerva DeLand and the high school. So I actually need a motion to approve the amended resolution. So we had the original one that I know we've talked a lot about, and I know it's been shared with our community, but we wanted to amend it. So do I have a motion?
Second.
Brian, Peter, in discussion. So I know that, yep, Brett is pulling it up there, just so that you can see if you're viewing from home or here, in terms of highlights and some changes. You can see there the May 29th was the original resolution, and then if you scroll down, you can see that we did put the timeline in terms of the consolidation. Hopefully to, I don't know what the word would be. We did hear many opinions and we have had many discussions about the merger. But we did want to make sure that there was a clear timeline in there so you can see that it is not next year. And I know there were concerns around that as well from staff and the community. But we do have the 2025 to 26 school year or 2026 to 27 school year. So that is one of the big parts in there that Brett was highlighted. But does anyone else want to?
I guess one thing that I'd like to kind of draw out is I appreciate the years in there. I think this is, providing the roadmap and the path forward to completing this that I know the board has been talking about since long before a lot of us were on the board. I guess I'd like to asking on having 2 years in there, the 25, 26 or 26, 27.
Yep. So
I guess the question I just want to have is I want fifth grade parents to be able to say, this is where you are going in ninth grade. I want sixth grade parents. A lot of us have seventh grade isn't on here anymore, but people should be able to. I want families to be able to look at their kids and say, we know this is where you're going to school. And so maybe, why have 2 years and, I'm sorry, I'll stop cutting you off now. But why have 2 years and kind of the timeline for when we're going to know what that year is?
Yep, so I think that when we talk about the next item on here, the facilities planning, where we're gonna look at the different options, I think that is what will have an impact on it. I also think that we wanted to make sure that there was guidance, so that people are clear that yes, we are merging. It's not a question of if we are, because I know that there was a lot of confusion with the community that the original vote that we had in December was whether or not it was a merge when it had already been a plan. But I don't know, does anyone else want to?
Do we want to table A then, till after we talk about B? If the year we pick it for this is dependent, because I agree with Brian, I don't want 2 different years in the resolution. I want, that's the year, that's what's happening, we're not.
May I interject?
Yeah.
I think the challenge with that is it depends on what occurs in October of 23, right? And you could add something to this resolution to the effect of the superintendent can provide a recommendation by December of 2023. So that will be definitive. So adding that by date to the superintendent does provide a definitive point when you're going to be able to share information. I know it's not on this, but putting 2 different dates here, you know, what, if the vote goes down, right, in October, right? Why would we wait 3 years to enact a merger when we can get it done sooner?
Keeping in mind that
That makes sense.
we've listened to many people, and we don't want to make this a rushed situation where the staff and the students are, you know, uncomfortable with the situation. So ideally, we would not have the budget go down in October, so.
I just think one thing I would like is the clarity on the difference between the two. Like, no matter what, we're merging. And then the vote for the facilities planning is different because there's a lot of components of the facilities planning that don't have to do with the merge and not. So I guess it trips me up again when we see the two different dates and then it's dependent on the merge. I would feel better if we said commencing with the 26-27 school year. And then if votes go down in the future, so on and so forth, and we have to amend this again, that's fine, but I would really like us to be all working from one date, one time, no more, if this happens, we do this, if that happens, we do that. Just, this is when the merger is going to occur, that's that conversation, and then
Yeah,
the facilities planning.
to build off of that, I think that, you know, I understand the line of thinking on that, but, you know, I think Dr. White and I are in line on that, is that any kind of ambiguity on, well, this happens if the vote goes down, this happens if the vote goes down, then I don't want it to become another situation like we had in December, where there's confusion in the community, or people think they are voting on whether we are merging or not. And I worry too much that that can lead to that. I do think, for me, Brett, I think your line of, you know, the superintendent will provide a final recommendation by December or November, because we'll know by November. Maybe that's a good compromise on that to allow for it, but I agree. I think one date's on here.
So Joyce and Marty, I know you've been here and through this process, and you've got to do all the studies and the research and gather the information for how many years?
I can't even remember.
Many,
many years.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on having a definitive date here?
I think it should be a definitive date. You know, I always want it to be sooner than later, but I think the planfulness is important, so that's fine. And then I do like the notion that in the event that something unexpected happens and the vote goes down, that the superintendent is able to revise the plan.
Or provide a recommendation.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't mean
Right, I mean, the resolution itself, the final one gives us the right, obviously, and we always do, it doesn't have to be in a resolution, to revise any resolution. I like where we're going, I like what's being said in terms of separating out issues. I think we've heard from Mr. Clark and from all of our principals the need to improve our facilities regardless, right? And so we're trying to separate a merger from facilities planning, which we need to do no matter what. And we can tour rooms in this very building and see, like, wow, why did we let them go that far, right? The music rooms and the STEM rooms, all those really need some more than love and tender care. They need renovation, if not destruction and reconstruction. So I understand, I recognize the flexibility because of some of the unknowns that are out there yet, right? There's planning to be done. And so that's mixing these issues, unfortunately, in some ways. And so I can support doing something there, recognizing we have the ability to come back. I guess I would go for the later year in this case, because we do know there'll be things that will make it more convenient, but regardless of whether it's convenient or not, the facilities need to be taken care of, right? And so,
Right.
again, let's separate these two issues so we can talk about facilities planning independent of itself and why it's needed. The merger's gonna happen, and here's the date.
And I think that just gives our families and students, if I'm a 5th grader now, I'm going to the high school. If I'm a 6th grader now, I'm the last class at Minerva.
Yes.
And then we can just stop those will they, won't they, or will I, won't I, for a kid.
But we still don't know, because it depends on the votes.
Well, no, no matter what, the kids are going to
Yes, they're going,
the high
but we
school by
don't know
26.
which group is. I mean, that's what I was gonna suggest, is a no later than date, possibly. And
Right,
then
and-
that leaves a place, it
No later than
depends on
26,
what
27.
happens. Just, right, no later than.
I don't like
So that's
that.
the drop dead date, we're moving, it's happening. If we can get everything we want done by then, wonderful. If some things are voted down and we don't get to do what we wish we could, then perhaps Rep will suggest that we move it forward a year or something. As opposed to making it, it's happening this year. Oops, didn't go as we planned, so now we're moving once again, which we have changed dates and reconsidered and, so to me, but I'm fine either way. I would just suggest possibly going with a no later than. Then you know that's the final, but it could be a little sooner if things don't go as our plan plays out.
And just for people that might be watching, just to clarify, when we had our board workshop and lots of discussion, the information is not given to us ahead of time. We did not have discussions secretly. We want to be transparent so people understand that we really are having these conversations in public. So I know there were probably questions around, why the discussions were happening, and people have different opinions, but that's what we want the public to see. So just wanted to clarify that. And this is a similar situation where we are having this discussion in public so people can see, what we're thinking and why we're moving in certain directions.
I think we heard from our community and our teachers, our schools, very loud and clear. We heard a lot from them after the vote. And I think by continuing to put this 2025-26 date, I think it's going to heighten animosity. And it's going to feel like, and I don't know how to say this in any nicer way, if you don't vote for this in 2023, we're moving up the date, which is what we heard a lot. We received a lot of negative commentary that how that felt to them. And I feel like by putting that 25-26 date, we're doing that again.
That's why I wouldn't do that. I would say no
Okay.
later than 2027.
So I
Doesn't
think
the no later than give the
Yeah.
vibe?
It just leaves room for our plan not working
I
as
don't-
we put it out there.
Personally, I'm uncomfortable with the wiggle room only because if I have a sixth grader, they start school in September, they're a seventh grader. They're not gonna know where they're going to ninth grade until after a vote in October.
It's been like that for years, Brian.
I'm being sarcastic.
No,
in my case.
No, and I just,
No, that's fine. So I
no,
think-
in terms of preparing,
Right.
in terms of our families preparing, I'm grateful that we're having this discussion of 25-26 and not the year earlier when it would have been this year's seventh graders going into eighth grade, not knowing where they were going into ninth grade. That would have been a whole other ball of wax. I guess, and thinking, Joyce, I don't mind the no later than 26, 27. I don't like I'm not a huge fan of the wiggle room, but
It is there.
Yeah, I mean,
what is the advantage of having or what's the disadvantage of us not having it? Like if we say it's 26, 27, no matter what.
I like just saying 26, 27, no matter what, because if we do have to come back and have it earlier, then that's a full discussion again. Like if there's a recommendation by our superintendent that he recommends we move it up to 25, 26, if he recommends we do something completely different, and so on, then that's another full discussion.
In
Whereas
public
if we
with
say 26, 27, that is what everyone is working towards, clear as day, September 26th, or September 2026, I don't know what day we'll start school there.
Not the
But
26.
that's that, and it's just clear.
I'm just uncomfortable with, you really can't say no matter what, unless.
so I think,
It's really, maybe with a target date of 26, 27. That's our target, that's where we're headed, that's our plan, that's what we're working towards, as opposed to no matter what is kind of contrary to unless the thing goes down and then we move it up here. Really, you can't have both of those. You can't have a no matter what and an unless. They don't work. So maybe just with a target date of 26, 27, or no, I don't know. I would be fine with any of it, but it just is a little concerning, those two different things to say.
So if we put in there, and can we adjust that today? Can we amend it?
He has it live.
Okay, so if we're able to do that, oh, there we go. So, let's see, could we say the target?
With a date, directs this consolidation of Minerva and FHS on a date certain effective commencing with.
So it would be a
What's
date
certain
certain.
effective?
I mean, you can't say a date certain if we still don't know what's happening in the future. We can't read the future and what our
But
proposals will come out as.
that comes with everything though.
Right, but just saying a date certain means
So I
that's when you're
guess-
gonna go with or without the vote.
So I guess you would say
I think we are.
on a target date,
No, but if,
Yeah.
but aren't we doing this 26, 27, even if we don't have the vote? We're gonna, I don't wanna talk about the vote is out of the
Yeah,
conversation.
I think that's the issue. If we are, if what we think is right, I think generally we are, we want to separate merging Minerva from the capital campaign votes. Those are two separate things. They're running parallel, but they're separate things. Then I agree with MC. I don't think we can have, then if the vote goes down, we're still merging in 26, 27.
You wouldn't move it up a year.
So maybe
if the vote
that
went
second,
down.
oh,
I would
sorry.
move it
I would
down.
not.
So maybe
I
the-
would vote for not. I would vote to not.
Maybe that's,
I would too.
oh, you wouldn't?
I would not.
I would not.
I like the clarity that our sixth graders know they're going to Minerva.
Yep.
And our fifth graders know they're going to the high school, and we just stop the,
Speculation.
yeah,
So then I would get rid of this sentence.
yeah.
I won't do it until everybody tells me to go.
Well, to everybody, that means we need a, I don't know, what do we do?
can we do it?
I mean, would anyone oppose if I take what I have highlighted and delete it, see what it looks
Read
like?
it? I can't read it.
To be hereafter determined and by the Board of Education upon the recommendation of the superintendent. So we're not saying to be hereafter determined, we're just saying 26,
It
27.
just is.
Just gotta get rid of that and.
And the last one's just more
Oh, no.
legalese. Is that right? Just
Yeah.
suggested legalese.
And then, yes.
So do we have to put it in bold and put stars around it?
No, I'm living with it.
We're good? Okay.
It's actually gonna be stamped on the back of the Brotherhood Sisterhood shirt.
So just because that on a date certain effective, is that the legal way of saying on like the first when school opens?
Yes,
on-
yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
The original date was 27. Okay, so do we feel comfortable with this as the amended resolution?
I do.
Okay, so I guess, I think I.
That's a straw poll, we gotta have a formal one, right?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Can I have a motion to approve the amended resolution?
So moved.
Sorry, Caitlin, Brian. We already discussed it, so all in favor? Aye. All opposed? 0. Okay. Next.
Just let me put this.
Oh, sorry.
Public content, doing a little.
Wow, look
On
at
the
that,
spot.
busy work.
It's like watching
The
Matt
agenda.
in Excel.
It's not even as good, trust me.
No, it's that good.
See, you jinxed me,
Okay, I'll stop talking.
Brian.
So the next part is another discussion. This one I do not believe we need to vote on. This would be directing Mr. Provenzano on next moves. So we are going to have a discussion about facilities planning, which would be, again, the merge with Minerva and the high school.
So I suppose at this point, though, whatever it says, projected merger date doesn't matter, because we just made a resolution otherwise.
Right.
So
Yeah.
what's up for number one, would it matter?
Yeah. And anyone that did not see the workshop or access, we did want to make sure that these slides were available so you can see what the options we've been talking about and researching and looking at over the past few weeks are. I don't know if you want to scroll down.
So, I mean, does the board want me to scroll to a particular one? I mean, we don't need to rehash these, or do you want to rehash these? Or do you want to talk the difference between different ones? Or
I think, can you go to 4?
Yeah.
So I think if you go down one more, thank you. Okay, so I think after lots of discussion and based on the workshop conversation, I personally feel that the option 4 is listening to what the teachers and the staff and Mr. Clark and everybody else voiced around the consolidation. But if you're not familiar with it, it's right here. For 4A, there would not be a tax impact.
yeah, so in essence, 4A, the board prioritized the merger, right? In order for us to enact the merger, to get our students into a facility that supports our robust programming so our students and staff can connect and engage in our programming to the best extent and the fullest extent possible, the merger would work in 4A where there would be no impact to the community, using reserves to offset the cost of the full project. For 4A, what that would mean would be a technology addition. What that would mean would be renovated library spaces and classrooms that would be embedded in the library, and taking the tech wing that's existing and revamping that to give much needed space in programmatic reconstruction, if you will. That would be accomplished given the timeline that was shared by our construction team to get the work done, have the students ready for the fall of 2026-27 in a fully constructed building to provide programming for 9th through 12th graders, given the study that we provided. You would also see that the board is really interested in the sale of Balmer Place. And when you sell Balmer Place, you can continue down the path of our facilities plan. The board is committed to the facilities plan, the long-range plan, which included selling district offices, the first one being Balmer Place. Those individuals would be moved to Martha Brown. There's spaces at Martha Brown that with slight reconstruction, 12-month employees would be able to work at Martha Brown. And some will be able to go to Minerva DeLand because there's office space, frankly, ready to go. So that would, again, we would be using reserves. Matt, do you want to take a look at this sheet right here?
Yeah, and I just wanted to comment, I know just, I've been trying to answer questions about this, you know, people not understanding how we could go with this option and not increase taxes when we had the, you know, tax increase previously. And I just want to point out that many items are not in this. We're really focusing on making sure that the high school has space and time so that we can get our 9th graders over here. So you can see what has been taken out, and I know Matt can explain it much better than me, but we did not.
Yeah, the finances of this are important for the community to understand, because the board, again, being responsive to the no vote in December, really pushed the idea of making this a no tax impact on our community. And here is a cost summary. Mr. Stevens, will you take us through that?
Yep, I'll jump in. So I just to clarify really quick, when we looked at, we could always refer back to the timeline, but still would be some construction happening in 26, 27. So important to note, while the merger would happen in 26 with the 4A timeline, there still would be some construction taking place.
Similar to now.
Yeah, so just wanted to.
But we would be able to enact the merger.
Correct.
That's the priority. The major classroom spaces would be completed. You're right, there'll be some I's to dot and T's to cross, but, can you please review the cost summary?
Yep, so the cost here, project cost of $34.3 million. With the usage of capital reserve, it lowers our overall borrowing. So here, in order to bring this down to a no additional local share, local tax impact, we need to utilize about $18.2 million of the capital building reserve. And you can see what that does to the principal. Drops the principal down to $16.1 million, reduces the interest expense, and then the debt service coupled with the state building aid that will come in on the overall construction with the assumed interest rate that we receive back on the building aid related to the debt and capital project, helping to bring that component share after the debt less the aid down to zero. Money, like any reconstruction project, would be borrowed over 15 years. That's the time period of which we would be receiving the aid back. We can't choose to get the aid back any shorter or longer. Reconstruction projects are aided over a 15-year period. So with that in mind, again, looking at the assumptions, you can see the 2023 voter referendum in October to allow that time period to do design, get it submitted to SED, and move forward as planned there. Building aid ratio, you can see about 79%. Bond percentage, that's how much of the project itself is aided. So there are cost allowances we have, so just to kind of highlight that. There is in any capital project, there's always a non-aided portion of the work, both in the actual work that takes place and that local share, what's not covered by building aid. So that's, again, where that capital building reserve comes into place, and it's extremely important to help reduce that local impact down. I won't run through all the assumptions there, but that's the cost of 4A.
So 4A would be, again, by 2020-26, 4A would be achieved. We would be able to get the merger enacted. Students would be able to come to the classroom. We're anticipating that construction would occur in 25-26 with the technology bump, with the library additions. That would allow us to get students in at no cost to the taxpayer.
So, Matt, I asked you this at the workshop, and I'll ask again just for a public meeting. Just to answer the question, if there is no tax increase, why do people have to vote for it? Why?
Yeah, anytime school districts want to receive building aid on capital construction, as well as the type of reconstruction that happens within the school district, we have to go through the process of getting it approved by the state education department. So a bond vote or bond referendum is required, especially anytime you borrow for funds. Not just borrowing though, but even doing capital work as a whole. So even if we weren't, let's say this project was brought down entirely to no borrowing, we'd still need to get approval or we would not drive it into state building aid. So that's required, as well as to access the capital building reserve. To access the capital building reserve, there needs to be voter approval.
And that's why you can't just automatically put something back up. And,
correct.
Which I know a lot of people have
Yep, so
asked that.
still has to follow all those steps of a voter referendum.
So this would leave us, if you could go back up one slide. So that leaves us, we right now have 19.2 million in reserve, and we would spend 18.2, so we would have $1 million left to do another future vote. And I really want to make this clear that it says 2024 vote. That is completely hypothetical. That is just kind of a guess. That huge asterisk that can be pushed back so we could save more in reserves, so we could look at it more robustly into what the other buildings need.
So at the workshop, correct me if I'm wrong, we would adjust this, if this was the choice, by 2025, because that would then give you time to accumulate more reserves to offset that cost. Now within that, and we've heard it loud and clear, there's elementary needs that we feel that we need to continue to get at. So it would help us reprioritize. We just heard a powerful reflection from a community member about the track. I know that there's passionate individuals who want to hear about the pool and see where that re-enters. So that second vote, you're 100% correct. And the board said on February 1st, make that a by 2020-25.
Right, and we could have additional things in it if.
Yeah, we're not limited to anything right now.
We can reshuffle the deck, and we'll have time to reshuffle the deck. If there's extra scope that comes in that needs to go through the design team, that will give us time to do that. We'll work through our building condition survey. We'll continue to talk to our constituents to make sure that whatever we propose in B aligns with our 2000 24, 25 priorities.
And I would say, all of us have talked about elementary being a priority, so I guess I just wanted to make that clear. I feel pretty strongly about the art and music rooms at the high school needing some major updates as well, but we do recognize that there's things in our elementary buildings that need some help.
And I think, you know, we learned a little bit more about our UPK, but that's something that we're gonna wanna look at, but I appreciate the time we're gonna have
And we're
to
able to
plan
see
it out.
yeah.
Yeah, but we would initially be acting on 4A. We won't be
Correct.
calling it 4A anymore.
It'll be the 23 vote.
Right, and then 4B will go in the background, only to talk about when it comes to future planning.
But I'll keep bringing it up so people don't forget.
Not when we're voting, though.
No.
So, you know, again, you know, that's an important point, because that's 4B could be adjusted with more time, right? So, thanks for bringing that up.
Yep, the
And with-
4B, as I understood it, the 4B was taking what was from the capital of the 2022 vote and kind of separating out what was there, but the 4B then kind of develop it, make it.
Well, and I know that there's other, you know, we've talked about, there is some funds where we could hopefully make some improvements to our elementary buildings along the
Quicker.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically.
I mean, yes. I
Yes.
mean, you know,
So-
and again, we took a look tonight at the non-instructional budget. Within the non-instructional budget, there's dollars set aside just for those purposes, and we can continue to develop those priorities.
Point of advocacy to increase the limit that we can do for that from 100,000 to 250,000.
That's another piece, so.
So,
And just to add, you know, as we clarify and we look at future years, when we look at 4B, right, if we were to refer back to the projection on costs, as we develop, if we look at a future year for vote, we would then just adjust for projections and costs. We'd look at construction at that time, we'd look at escalation, we'd look at all those different pieces as we shift out any future projects, just to.
So what he's saying, it will never be cheaper than today.
I don't know about that though. Construction right now and inflation's real.
What? Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, you're saying it's gonna go down.
maybe.
Good.
I'm
I
gonna
like
go
your
with
optimism.
your.
The numbers,
Never bet on prices going down.
ultimately, the numbers will be
I think that's
different.
good.
So I guess,
So I'm hearing from the board from this discussion, there are no formal actions, is that you want me to go forth with a plan that speaks figuratively to 4A and 4B, and coming forth with our next steps and how we can actualize that in a
yeah,
timeline.
And not necessarily with the removed track, but that was just a consideration for this.
And I just want to make it clear that we heard our staff at both Minerva and the high school that, you know, they want to be part of the discussions. And I know that, Brett, you've talked with lots of folks, and that is our goal as well.
I'm really excited to, you know, have a path and bring our staff in and have them part of the process, engage with them. They have lots of good questions, and I think, you know, hopefully we can inform and share what we plan on with clarity and purpose. I just want to have a point of clarification from Dr. White. You said something about the track. I don't want.
Oh, I just meant, right now on this slide, like if somebody were watching this presentation after the fact, if at the bottom it says removed track, that means that was in the 22 vote, but
Gotcha.
it wasn't under consideration
Correct.
for this situation.
Thank
But
you.
that, in the future, we obviously do need to
Yep.
service our track. It's not where it should be.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you. Everyone in a good place?
I think so.
Thumbs up, thumbs down?
Yeah, I hope it's clear.
I'm clear.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on. So, next, the policies.
Nope, we got district
Oh my
budget.
gosh, I
District
forgot.
budget, yeah.
I'm trying to,
Well,
I'm
again,
teasing.
this board has spent a lot of time listening to community members, to staff members, trying to prioritize how do you create a budget that meets the needs of everyone. I know that district administration has happily been doing an analysis of UPK, as Dr. David Nason spoke to earlier this evening. Looking forward to seeing how that translates exactly in our budget, so we can see the impact of UPK. And I'm proud of the board of really, you know, making this a priority, because I know several community members would agree. And I think it's just important to recognize that from our conversations, there were 22 additional staff requests. And that's okay, because people have great ideas and thoughts on how can we support the social emotional needs of our students, making sure that we're connecting all the supports, the academic supports, the social emotional supports, and the community supports, and make sure we do it in a systematic way. We've talked a lot about supporting students who are struggling coming back from the pandemic, and making sure that our special education students have all they have at their disposal. So I don't know if the board wanted to speak to some of the things that they heard or accentuated it, but I think that 22 number is really important to recognize. I would love to be able to accommodate a request of 22 in total with administrators, with our teachers, and paraprofessionals. But I think that's the work of the board as we're trying to prioritize the different interests. It's up for discussion, if you so choose.
I'm just grateful to everybody who came out and shared. I know I wasn't here that evening, but I was at swim lessons with the headphones in my ears listening in on the meeting. So it was just really appreciate people taking the time.
I know you have, if you scroll up a tiny bit. There were some that overlapped between all the different groups.
So there's the overlap right there.
Yeah.
So the 4 bullets speak to what the common themes were. How do you address the social emotional needs, behavioral needs of our students? How do you create a system that's aligned, K-12, that supports all the great academic pieces that we're trying to align, the social emotional pieces, and the community resources that are critically important. That's the MTSS coordination between buildings and districts, right? And then you have special education. There's instructional needs. We're proud to serve our special ed students and families, and there's specific things that we could do that we're going to try and work hard to address. And then that last bullet is about supporting students with alternative education needs, learning loss, doing it in a restorative way, not in a way that isolates kids, but a way that unites kids and keeps them connected. So those were themes that I heard, that we all heard, and we tried to collate them, and we'll be working through that when it comes to the instructional budget. So chunking them into those helps me communicate to you as we move forward.
Is that something, the last point, the restorative work and learning loss you mentioned, is that something that can be addressed potentially with that extra 400,000?
So
the high impact tutoring and the governor's aid? Or
the high impact tutoring is, hopefully, that's what I'm going to say, because there's lots of nuance to it.
Sure.
What they've done more than ever is they've put a lot of layers in it, but it will be about math, it will be about reading, the social emotional piece. It hasn't been allocated for that, but that doesn't mean you can't create a social emotional restorative and responsive environment around it. But we're looking at creative ways to use, I think it was up to $450,000 of tutoring dollars allocated to support students and programming and staff to support it, so we can continue. And that's a one-time fee though. It's not something that is going to be continual. So we got to be careful with foundation aid reaching its peak, that we don't outspend ourselves this year.
Thanks.
I think we have lots more discussions to come. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we have quite a few policies. Yeah, how many are there? Let's see. Okay, so moving to our policies, these are the first reads, and yes, you can click on these if you're watching from home and check them all out. Some are updated because of educational law, so some we do not have a lot of changes to make, and some, obviously we put a lot of time and effort into, but I do need a motion that the Board of Education approves the first reading of the following policies: 3121, 5110, 5120, 5320, 7330, 6130, 6550, 3220, 3240, 3280, 6161, 5323, 5572, We also have our statement of core beliefs and our equity statement of beliefs, which, and then also 7,001. So we've been very busy.
So moved.
Okay, yes. Mary Caitlin,
Second.
Janice.
And if I could just explain, so we have our core beliefs that we worked on last year, our statement of core beliefs. And what the policy committee wanted to propose to the board as a whole, on our policies on board docs, there's a section called forward, and it kind of explains what policies are. And what we were hoping to do is put our statement of core beliefs there, as well as our equity core belief statement that's in here as well. So it's very clear as people join us on board docs or look at our policies, who we are and what we stand for. And then 7,001 is our equity and education policy that has been in the works for a while, and we're very proud. It's tight, it's clear, exactly what we want to be working on. Things like hiring, things like academic performance for all students. So all of that is there. So policy's pretty jazzed to get that for you.
And we included definitions, so
Yes,
if there's
yes.
questions about what different terms mean, it is there as well,
Yes.
so.
I thank you. I think the definitions is great. There's so much confusion about those terms, and
It's just
that
there.
clarifies it.
This is what we're
So-
saying.
I did have a quick question, if I can, on 7330, the searches and interrogation. Just really, so there's bottom of page 2, parent notification. Right now it says parent will be notified if a search finds anything illegal, prohibited, or dangerous, blah, 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 if found. So the parent will not be notified if a search takes place and nothing is found, correct?
We usually, as standard practice, we communicate with families no matter what.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, given the timeliness of it, you really try to get in front of it as fast as you can, but there are times when you have to do that. But communication with parents is priority 1A.
And the regulation would,
The regular,
Yeah. And also, this would just be searches of belongings or like outerwear.
Okay.
Anything more invasive in that we don't do, we would involve law enforcement, they would involve parents.
Sure.
That's all in there, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
So this would be like, if you looked in somebody's locker and nothing was found.
Yeah.
okay,
So, mine are a couple things. The 7,001
Yes.
has included in it the equity core belief statement.
It
Is
should
that, right, that's really the question, right? Is it separate documents, so it's, when I
The
click on it, it
PDF
just
should-
opens all of it.
The PDF doesn't have all of it, so.
yeah.
So this click does, right, well, at least the public.
Oh yeah, there is the equity core belief statement, that's there.
Of part of 7,001 though.
When I'm clicking there's two 7,001s in here.
Oh, are there, I clicked on the one that has, you're right, there's two. I clicked on the one that has, it's much larger, well, it looks
Yeah, so
smaller.
click on the second one.
Very good, okay, so it's listed twice, and one of
Yeah,
them.
that's the correct one.
Yeah, this is the
Yes.
one that is
Okay.
approved, yep.
Yep.
The other one I had, but which, conference travel expense, 6161. Knowing we can look at these anytime, but typically we try to do these on a 5-year rotation. There is a per diem listed in there. Never really a fan necessarily of making something so hard fast, especially in an inflationary period. Is there a way to pay something?
We talked about this because I think if you scroll down, there's a yearly, right, update to it. So, yeah, I think we already had it on our radar that we would need to update it because the miles per hour.
Right, but that keeps bringing us back to revise the policy
There's some
rather
that
than
we-
putting something in there that
There's some
allows
that we do
the
every year.
administration to revise per diem type expenses based on the environment. Right, so you have, for example, mileage reimbursement based on the IRS. So that's something we don't have to revisit because we picked something to which it's aligned. I don't know if there's a per diem for food or whatever, but it's even based on cities, right? We've only excluded one city, but that's not the only city that's expensive to go to a conference in, right? So it's, just wondering how we make it equitable, some flexible, equitable, depending on where people go for their professional development.
You're right, because we had talked about,
Yeah.
this is usually just within New York State.
So can we, Sarah, make a note, can I make a motion to pull 6161 to further update that?
It's a first reading.
Yeah, this is currently on a first read.
So,
So do you need to pull it?
I don't
or
think
is
yeah,
it-
there's times you can use
Oh,
that
we can
for,
just change it?
For a second.
Okay.
So, yeah,
So it's
just,
really under the miscellaneous, is it, what, I just had it here,
It's on
C.
so you're looking for
Meals.
language that
Page
generalizes it, so.
Yeah, like if it's based on state rates or
Meals,
something.
not letter C.
I don't know if meals are, I guess, Matt, we can talk about that, right?
Yeah, there may be regulation around this, and that's partly inherent to the question whether we have to have a hard and fast dollar. But we're living in a day and age which says maybe that's not really workable.
Yeah.
Right, and again, it does exclude New York City, but that's not the only city I would think we should consider. But anyway,
But if we
okay.
pass it on to the second read though, then it's not editable. Or unless you want to do it in one read at the next time.
Well, the way you share, this is what was done to it, and then they vote, the board will vote on it.
Yeah, we can adjust it.
Talk about it at the next policy.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was
it's
thinking
not
of
for
doing it.
second reading, it's done.
So we're okay leaving it, and we can pass it here as part of the first read, noting that that one will be looked at again in the meantime.
Do that.
okay. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. 7-0. Which brings us to policy second reads. I need a motion that the Board of Education approves the second reading of the following policies: 5130, 5150, and 8320. So Mary Caitlin, second, Jan. Any discussion around these? We did see them before, so
No changes from last time, so.
nope. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Which brings us to field trips. I need a motion to approve the following list of field trips. And there are a lot, which is exciting.
Oh my gosh, reading. Oh, sorry. I'll do
Some of.
motion.
Brian, Joyce, and discussion.
So exciting reading through these. Model UN, Science Bowl, coding competition at Cornell, court visits, life skills classes, team building, science at the zoo, math club, career exploration, Legos, robotics. Oh my goodness, how badly do I want to go on some of these?
So I was at a conference this past weekend on student motivation, and, you know, I was really proud to speak on behalf of the things that we're able to do to connect students to greater experiences. And this is an intentional instructional budget line, which we'll be talking about next month. It's a credit to the board to keep their eye on this. I think you'll say that you get the most bang for your buck in these opportunities, so thank you for supporting them.
Did we do a shout out earlier to the Math Counts Club?
I don't think so.
Just the fact that they're headed to Saratoga Springs, so exciting.
Absolutely. Well, when they
Middle
win there,
schoolers.
we'll do a highlight.
Yeah, which is seriously, serious kudos to
Some they don't
those
make us do math
kids.
problems. Well, they can make Peter do math problems.
I need Excel.
Lots of great things happening.
Yeah,
for
just really
sure.
excited for them.
Okay, all in favor? 7-0. And now on to fundraising. A motion to approve the following fundraising request.
So moved.
Marty. Joanne, okay.
Right,
Any discussion?
Just.
No.
no,
Jan.
Jan.
Yes, Jan.
Sorry.
Don't know that there's.
Just excited that, what a great show those kids will be doing at Minerva, so very excited about that.
Me too. Me too. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Okay, so this we're actually doing a little ahead of time, which is great. It's an appointment to vote, for people to handle the vote for the budget and the school board in May. So I need a motion to approve the appointment of the chairperson of election, chief election inspector, and election inspectors for the annual budget vote on May 16th, 2023. Mary Caitlin, Jan, any discussion?
Grateful to these people, that was a very long day.
Thank you, fine, so thankful for their service on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, all in favor? Aye, 7-0. Which brings us to Central Treasurers Extra Classroom Funds, which I think there were some adjustments, and you can see it there, yep. So I need a motion to approve the following Central Treasurers and Administrators to be appointed to monitor extra classroom funds for the 2022-23 school year as updated, and they're highlighted in yellow. Joyce?
Second.
Marty? Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye, 7-0. No, we talk about this frequently, but the audit report, and it's the single audit report, and I need a motion that the board accepts the single audit report for the year ending in June 30th, 2022, and it is attached there.
So moved.
Peter?
Second.
Marty? Discussion?
Well, so Brett makes it sound like I always like to comment on the audit, and I don't want to disappoint.
Well, there's another one too. So.
Yep, there's another, but I can comment on both of them at once.
Perfect.
One, what is a single audit, right? Just this is an audit of our federal funds.
Yep.
It's done annually. There has been questions out there from time to time whether our federal funds are in jeopardy because are we meeting all the requirements? And so I'll point out the audit committee has reviewed this. It was submitted to the audit committee, now to the rest of the board, with no findings, meaning no, there is no jeopardy. We are meeting all requirements, and therefore our receipt of federal funds is not in jeopardy at all. But kudos as always to the team. Thank you, Mr. Stevens, for the excellent job, and everybody, please at your office share that. Always grateful that there's no findings, right? And I guess that goes throughout the entire staff in terms of how it's utilized within the buildings and the services that are rendered, so really appreciate it. Great reading, though. It's available here for people to read if you can't sleep tonight.
And
There you
it does
go.
cover the CURSA funds as well, the different funds for during the pandemic. So if you're interested, we know it's all available on our website, how we spent it and stuff, but this audit reflects an overview of how it was spent as well.
Absolutely. Okay, all in favor? Aye. 7-0. And then we have the other audit report, so
I
I.
didn't comment on it, I'll have to comment.
It's okay, you spread well.
I need a motion that the board accepts the extra classroom activity funds financial report and approves the corrective action plan for the year ending in June 30th, 2022 as attached. And Brian?
Second.
Mary Caitlin? Discussion?
Yeah, this one does have correction action plan. I love it, right? Because this is extra classroom activity funds. This means students are involved. And exactly what you would expect to find, I think, is why I love this one so much, that we do have findings every year. There's involvements with adults supervising youth who are trying to learn about how you collect money and hand off money. There's awkwardness in this, and there's needs to protect yourself, so there's also not accusations. There's a bunch of things that are going on, and this is a great learning experience, and so there are corrective, I think, action plans. Generally, they don't find anything that's necessarily serious, like anybody absconding with all the fundraising money and running off to where a student might run off to, I don't know, right, especially if they can't drive. But
Eastview, I don't know.
right, Eastview and spend it. But regardless, it wasn't anything that brought panic, but it is always learning opportunities. And so again, I think we approved the central treasurers, people who kind of oversee this within each of the buildings, and they do a good job. You're dealing with students who are learning, right? And it's a fantastic learning experience. So this is one of my favorite audits to see and to read and see what they've done and what they may not have done and what needs to be done. And so here we go, right? Apply it. Next year, of course, they get a whole new group of students in, and we fixed one thing, but we got something different this time.
And I think what's really cool when you're reading this is it gives you that lens on how detailed our audits are. Like, that they break it down and they're like, well, one treasurer brought receipts home when they were supposed to put it in the office, and just how detailed they're looking. So when you read our other audits, it builds that trustworthiness.
Yeah. Well, and how awkward is it? You buy gift cards for some people. They don't get paid, so you get them a gift card. Well, they're supposed to get a receipt from the person giving a gift card. How many people do that?
Right.
Here's my Christmas gift to you. Could you
And
sign
how
a
much
receipt
is that?
acknowledging
Yeah,
right,
acknowledging that you got the
Make
gift
sure it's
card.
right? And so there's awkward things that they have to learn to do that keeps them safe and says, yes, the committee authorized me to give you this gift card, and here's a receipt that I did it properly. And so it's a finding. Oh, you didn't ask? Well, I don't know that I would have ever asked anybody to do that either at that age, right? So it might be a finding every year. No, I'm not encouraging them to do that, but you see, yes, it's so detailed that they got into, wow, you gave somebody a gift card, but you didn't, they didn't acknowledge that they received it. That's pretty detailed audit.
I just love the phrase, my favorite audit to read.
Well, now you're gonna make all the other audits feel.
Sorry, other audits. The single audit's a little boring, there's no findings.
There aren't too many people who love reading an
I mean,
audit.
you're really excited, I was really.
I know.
Maybe it's a relative scale.
I love your enthusiasm, that's what I love about it.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 7-0. Okay. Which brings us to the end for our public, but I do need a motion to enter into executive session for matters related to the responsibilities and performance of employees in a non-collective bargaining unit. And I do invite to participate in the session Brett Provenzano, Tanya Wilson, and I'm gonna say your name wrong, Mason. I'm used to you as Wilson, Doug Wolf, and Matt Stevens. And just so anybody listening at home knows, I know it's not live, but once we go into executive session, we will reconvene and then just adjourn from there. So we will not be coming back together to share anything else. Can I have a motion? Everybody? No. Marty and Joyce, and all in favor? Aye. And I think the time is 8:46.